in for Thanksgiving. We're covering it from all angles tonight. Phillip Wegmann, the RealClearPolitics White House correspondent. Pablo Manriquez covers the Capitol for Latino rebels, has incredible sourcing inside the Progressive Caucus. Meridith McGraw is the national political correspondent for Politico. Appreciate you all being here with us. Pablo, got to hand it to you. You called no deal a few nights ago. So is there now a deal for a deal, or is that still too optimistic?
I think it's still too optimistic. Basically, if anybody's eating a lot of humble pie tonight, it's Nancy Pelosi, because she made a lot of assurances to the president and to the public that there would be a vote on the infrastructure deal today. Now, Ilhan Omar told us this morning, right around 9:30 in the morning, that she was a hard no on the infrastructure bill, unless the other, as she termed it, the other bill gets a vote too. And by about 10 in the morning, Cori Bush was saying that Joe Manchin was operating in bad faith. Now, that's one of the first times that I've heard anybody sort of seriously reach from that House Progressive Caucus, really kind of start mouthing off toward the senators who are in these negotiations. But it's a moment when progressives are flexing, and I think that they're going to have to either add some stuff back in that's been taken out, or Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema are going to have to reach some sort of middle ground on things that might be really controversial, like, as you mentioned, say, immigration.
Yeah, and there's some serious words being thrown about that you don't normally hear publicly. You know, bamboozled and the like is fighting words, if you will, especially within their own caucus. Phil, we saw the president. He came down to Capitol Hill. This is his second trip down, didn't get a deal, went back to the White House, put on this stoic face of we have a historic framework, and headed out. Privately, how worried is the White House about leaving without a deal?
Well, the White House is clearly trying to portray a aura of inevitability about the possibility of getting some sort of deal to the finish line. But what we saw in real time is that despite the public displays of confidence, they don't have the votes. And Joe Biden said that he wanted to have a vote by the time that he landed in Rome. He's going to be lucky if he gets one by Christmas, because just like, Pablo laid out a second ago, this is pretty similar to what we saw 4 weeks ago, which is that, House progressives were able to scuttle a vote on the bipartisan infrastructure package. And so the takeaway from today is that progressives in the House are just as entrenched as moderates are in the Senate. And despite all of his, arm twisting and moderating, the president doesn't seem to be any closer to getting his own party to agree with itself.
Yeah, it's noteworthy that somebody from his own party denied him the win before he left to go overseas. Meredith, this is Congressman Schiffowsky from Illinois talking about what needs to happen if Manchin and Sinema don't come along. Take a listen.
We're going to win this thing. The momentum is unbelievable. We're surging in the polls. Terry McAuliffe's 43-year political career is crashing down, and this is what Virginians are ready to do, make a change.
Well, obviously, that was not the congresswoman. That was the fellow running for governor in Virginia. We're going to get to that race in a minute. But, Meredith, this idea, though, for the president, that it's members of his own party denying him these victories, you have to wonder how the White House is going to spin that when he's overseas meeting with world leaders. How does he say I can deliver on anything if he just walked away from this massive failure?
Well, this is exactly what the White House wanted to avoid, and it's something that President Biden made clear to members of his own party that he wanted to avoid too. Before he got on that plane and before he meets with world leaders, before he goes to the Vatican and meets with the Pope and talks about important humanitarian issues and things like climate change, he wanted to be able to project to the world that he is a guy, he's a leader that can unify his party and that can get stuff done. And right now, that's just not the message that he's able to send. And the two biggest hiccups is the senator from West Virginia and the senator from Arizona, who so far have given a pretty chilly response to this bill. And when you're abroad, when you're a president, that's trying to meet with these world leaders, you want to show that you're able to get business done at home so you can get business done abroad. And so far, he's already facing a hiccup as he's heading there now.
Yeah, lightning round, guys. Now I'll ask for short questions, short answers. Pablo, again to you. Do progressives worry that at some point President Biden's going to need a win and he says to the progressives, go pound sand. I'm just going to go with this bipartisan deal, $1.2 trillion, roads, bridges, internet, it's popular, and progressives, go ahead. I'm going to get some Republicans to vote for the bipartisan deal?
I mean, he can try. He can certainly try to get the Republicans to vote for a bipartisan deal, or at least more Republicans in the House. But that's one of the things that's sort of brilliant about the House progressive strategy right now. I don't think that Nancy Pelosi actually knows what the vote count is beyond the Progressive Caucus rank-and-file members themselves, because there are other members of Congress who aren't necessarily members of the Progressive Caucus, but who are aligned on the five negotiating pillars that they've been moving forward with. And the consistency of Premier Jayapal's position as sort of like the spokesperson and leader, and the consistency of Ilhan Omar, who also is like a very prominent spokesperson for the caucus, in just sticking to these five negotiating principles and sticking to the exact same sort of tactical ask of running the bills together, I think is refreshing to some more moderate members. It's sort of like an untold story.
You got to hand it.
Yeah, you know,
Yeah, you've called it, and you got to hand it to the progressives for standing firm on this. It's been really remarkable in the face of amazing pressure. Phillip, speaking of that pressure, what other cards does the White House have to play with Manchin and Sinema?
Well, it seemed like the White House was pushing a lot of their chips into the table. We heard reports that the president was telling the House Democratic Caucus that his presidency could be at stake, as well as their majorities in Congress. I think that that is punctuated by what we're seeing in Virginia right now. No one is more happy about this delay than Glenn Youngkin, because it doesn't, put the wind behind Terry McAuliffe's sails. I'm not certain what other cards can be played, but they are certainly brainstorming over at the White House and on Air Force One, because the president staked his agenda on these two bills, and so far he's come up short.
Meridith, that segues nicely into this trip abroad. Does the White House view it as they can spin any wins other than just the obvious pomp and circumstance over the next 4 days?
I mean, at the end of the day, President Biden is still president of the United States, and with that carries the immense weight and respect of just, again, being the president of the United States. That being said, the chaos that we're seeing back home is certainly not helping for whatever agenda he's trying to push abroad there, but it also gives him the benefit of the very nice pictures that are able to come out of all of these summits where you are meeting with other world leaders and people like the Pope.
You can imagine he's working the phones on Air Force One across the Atlantic right now. Great conversation. Thank you all.
Thanks, Leland.
Yeah, excellent. All right, President is literally in the air to Europe. Thanks for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.